Bayley recently had her big match completely canceled, so we'll see what's going on there. We'll also check out what's going on with the Usos, the Bloodline, and more. Let's start things off with the big cancellation for Bayley. So over the last few months, Damage Control had a slow-burning breakup story unfolding. They all weren't on the same page, there was constant confusion, miscommunication, and just a lot of things going against them over the last few months. And even after Dakota Kai went down, the story seemed to still be continuing, with Bayley and Io Sky still having issues communicating and being on the same page. The tension there between Bayley and Io led to the big moment of Io accepting a challenge on Bayley's behalf, for Bayley to put her Money in the Bank spot on the line against Shotzi. It was a big match that was promoted and advertised an entire week in advance, and it obviously seemed like the events that would happen at the end of Bayley versus Shotzi would be important for the status of Damage Control's breakup storyline. Will Bayley end up losing her spot? Will Io try costing Bayley the match? Will Bayley somehow retain her Money in the Bank spot? How will this affect Bayley and Io's relationship? For a regular singles match, there was actually a lot at stake and on the line there for this storyline. But when it actually came to the June 23rd edition of SmackDown, the show that Bayley versus Shotzi was advertised for, the match was quietly pulled and it was nowhere to be seen. And it wasn't like the match was canceled and scrapped for a long time. Just 3 hours before SmackDown aired, Bayley took to Twitter to post a graphic of her match with Shotzi. She was advertising the match and talking about how she was going to retain her Money in the Bank spot to be at London. But 3 hours later, that match is completely wiped off the show, meaning that it had to be due to a last-second rewrite of the script and how changes were made. Bayley's match being scrapped wasn't the only thing to be taken away from the June 23rd edition of SmackDown. WWE was also promoting a triple threat match between LA Knight, Santos Escobar, and Butch to take place on SmackDown. But that too was changed to LA Knight versus Rey Mysterio. So it was a night full of changes and cancellations. Bayley took to Twitter a few hours after SmackDown ended and after her match was nowhere to be found, and she posted a GIF that had the caption of, "I was fooling y'all. Those were jokes." So Bayley's taking the situation and responding to it in character, basically being happy that she didn't have to put her Money in the Bank spot on the line since the match was canceled. But it still has to hurt to have your storyline and part of the show be scrapped at the very last second before the show goes live. There's no official word on the exact reasoning behind the match's cancellation. It wasn't acknowledged or mentioned at all within the episode of SmackDown. So one theory out there is that it could have been due to time-related issues, and how something must have ran over time that prevented Bayley and Shotzi from having their match. And maybe they'll have that match next week on SmackDown, potentially. The other theory is that the change in cancellation to the match came from Vince McMahon himself. Remember that Vince McMahon was never sold on the concept of Damage Control. Bayley had been pitching the faction for years, and Vince McMahon was reportedly never on board with it. So assuming that he's still not on board with Damage Control, maybe he did play a role in the change and decided to have that time go to another story. Maybe Bayley was set to win and retain her Money in the Bank spot, so they figured the match with Shotzi was pointless. It's a very strange cancellation, especially to have a match and story they were advertising so well in advance. But those are the ideas and theories floating around to why this match was scrapped. It looks like Bayley will keep her Money in the Bank spot and will be heading over to London after all. Damage Control story progression might have been cancelled from the June 23rd edition of Raw, but we're to assume that the story will continue during the women's Money in the Bank match itself. Bayley and Io are both in the match, and as we are all well aware of, there can only be one winner. So maybe Bayley and Io will start the match off by helping out each other, but it's only a matter of time before their working relationship implodes within the match. And if Io Sky actually wins the Money in the Bank contract, that too would be huge for the story. And we just have to assume that Bayley will be extremely jealous of the fact that she would basically have to play sidekick and second fiddle to miss Money in the Bank, Io Sky. So that's another potential route to take this breakup story in as well. If Io is holding that contract, Bayley most likely won't be able to hold her composure together for long, and it's only a matter of time before she loses it on Io. But that's the latest for Bayley and Io's storyline. It's unfortunate that the match with Shotzi was cancelled, but hopefully we do get to see their story continue in a massive way in the coming weeks here. Now let's get into the latest updates with the Bloodline Civil War storyline. The June 23rd edition of SmackDown kicked off with the Usos making an appearance. The Usos mention how they're getting ready to fight their family. They point out that the family obviously isn't supposed to fight like this, and how they're supposed to lift each other up. But obviously they didn't have much of a choice with how Roman Reigns behaves. Jey said that they still have love for Roman Reigns, and how they did everything he would say there for 3 years, but how the constant disrespect from Roman was just too much. And that's so important because Jimmy says that they were all raised on respect, so to constantly be disrespected by someone close in the family definitely hurts. Jey says that the biggest snake of them all is Paul Heyman. For weeks now, Jey Uso has been requesting for Paul Heyman to be removed from the Bloodline, but he never really explained why until this moment right here. The Usos say that Heyman has known their family for 40 years and is extremely close to them, yet he takes orders from a guy that wanted to split a pair of brothers up. So that's why Jey has been so upset with Paul Heyman. He's supposed to be like an extended family member, yet Heyman isn't doing anything to stop what Roman wanted to do. So that's why the Usos feel betrayed and have this anger towards Paul Heyman as well. They just thought, as the special counsel, that Heyman would try to step in and stop what Roman was doing. But Heyman put in no effort to stop Roman. That's what has them furious with Heyman. The Usos also promised to take down Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa at Money in the Bank. Solo Sikoa and Paul Heyman were shown walking backstage. Solo delivered a spike to Ridge Holland after they bumped into each other, and Solo said that he wasn't in the mood tonight, while Heyman called Roman in the background. Then after Solo's victory in the main event of the night, the Usos came out to brutally lay out their younger brother, Solo Sikoa. They delivered multiple super kicks to him, gave him a double team splash, and made sure he stayed down no matter what. The Usos stared Paul Heyman down, while Heyman once again called Roman Reigns. Obviously, Roman Reigns wasn't booked for the show, and with the Usos now being gone from the Bloodline, Solo Sikoa's got a hard dose of reality. When Roman Reigns isn't around, Solo Sikoa is now completely on his own with only Paul Heyman as his only backup. So life could get pretty rough for Solo Sikoa in the near future when Roman isn't around. But Roman will return on the June 30th edition of SmackDown, one day before Money in the Bank, and he will have a lot to address. Roman will have to address the Usos attacking him from a few weeks ago, and he'll have to address what the Usos recently did to Solo Sikoa. And we should definitely expect one last face-off between both teams on SmackDown before they meet at Money in the Bank. And whatever happens in the post-match of their Money in the Bank meeting should definitely give us a clue of where this story is headed next. But what are your thoughts on today's stories? Leave your comments below. Don't forget to subscribe with all notifications on, and leave a like if you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, guys.